To help us break down this situation, I want to welcome on Nihal Krishan, an economic policy reporter for the Washington Examiner. So, Nihal, we talked to you about 2 weeks ago about this whole economic situation. It was really in the middle of the lockdowns when the stock market was tanking. Since then, we've seen the $2.3 trillion relief package be passed, and it seems, at least, like things have stabilized, but this is going to be a little bit of a weird question. What is the state of the economy where it is right now? Is it stabilized? Are we still in a free-for-all? What is the status?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. First of all, I'm starting to look forward to these semi-social situations on a weekly basis that I get to have with you. It's one of the few times that I get to see somebody else new. So yeah, but getting right into your question, we are still very much in a horrendously anxiety-filled free fall kind of a situation that you described. We're nowhere near any sense of stability or chance of growth. Of course, I mean the government has very intentionally, and society as a whole, we've very intentionally decided to bring our economy to a halt, and so the situation is that we've passed 3 economic relief packages in the past 3 weeks, one each week. The effect of those is still yet to be seen. The third and most recent one, for example, that's supposed to help big corporations, that's supposed to send individuals checks, and of course help small businesses, is yet to be implemented. Small business checks are starting to go out today and this weekend. The individual checks haven't gone out. Corporation loans are still to be received. So even though these 3 bills have passed, we're yet to see exactly how much that will hopefully stabilize our economy and help people's jobs and companies.
Yeah, and that package that you're talking about, too, a big part of those funds were supposed to go to, for example, airlines and cruise liners who are very much so affected by this, as, of course, people aren't traveling at the moment, hotel industries as well. So there are kind of the understandable type of sectors that are really being affected by this lockdown right now. Of course, it's state by state for the time being, but it looks like more states are kind of hopping on that bandwagon. We saw Florida, for example, impose a similar measure, Virginia as well. So regarding this type of situation of where we stand right now in the economy, what are the sectors that are most being affected by the current state of it? Is it kind of what we were saying, more the things that you would think about, the travel industry, things like that?
Yes, of course. I mean, hospitality, as you mentioned, has been hit hard, but I would, draw attention to, for example, hair salons, anything in the health, in the beauty or health realm outside of hospitals, of course, hair salons, barbers. They're being particularly hard hit. I've been talking to a number of economists and data folks on the economy recently, and the ones that have been hit hard are arts and entertainment, of course, bars and lounges, anything related to sports and recreation. There's a whole bunch of industries that have almost closed beyond just what you'd expect from hospitality and restaurants. I mean, any sort of industry that is deemed non-essential has been impacted. Anywhere where people have to go in, as I said, like a bar or like manicures, pedicures, museums, galleries. All these are places that have been hit very hard. I will say on the other end of the spectrum, kind of somewhat unexpectedly, sources have told me that lawns and pool services have been pretty stable, and they've continued to have demand in areas where pools and lawns are there and servicing is needed. Gun stores have done very well and have had a spike in their sales in the past few weeks. And then, of course, grocery stores, supermarkets, and liquor stores, which is to be expected as people stock up.
No, to that point, too. In fact, I was just talking to one of my colleagues here who had to get a haircut recently, and they had to go in the backyard of someone's house, and basically it sounded like a drug deal going down, shaking hands with money in it and stuff like that. But people are kind of finding ways to kind of isolate themselves while at the same time trying to get those, I guess you could call it essential services to some degree. But you bring up for example, that there are some sectors that are kind of, I don't want to say capitalizing at this moment, but are still getting by, whether it be grocery stores, gun manufacturers, stuff like that. Is there any type of industry that's kind of more immune to this type of thing? I mean, I personally thought that maybe the hospital and medical professionals would be a little bit more immune to this at a time where, I mean, they're in high demand, but it seems like that's not actually the case. Is it the same way with like pharmaceutical companies and other kind of things in that sector?
So hospitals, yes, have not been as impacted financially by this. They're still getting paid by insurance companies and by a number of clients who are coming in. Of course, health wise, hospitals have taken a huge toll.
Yeah.
Economically, I mean, hospitals are not always the most like profit raising or profit focused
Sure.
organizations. And so at a time like this, even delays in payments or people are not able to pay are not being turned down. The pharmaceutical industry, until we have a vaccination or some other sort of drug that we can agree upon that is actually effective at dealing with the coronavirus, um, there's not been, beyond, of course, people stockpiling on certain medicines that they would like to have just in case. There has not been a huge. The pharmaceutical industry has been stable, but there hasn't been
Yeah.
a huge spike that we've seen thus far.
Mm.
But so something else that I would draw your audience to is the fact that I've heard from places like Zendu or Womply, which gather data from millions of companies around the country, and how many small businesses are actually using this time, those who have a glass half full or optimistic approach, to reinvest in their business in terms of improving their technology, in terms of improving their infrastructure, marketing techniques. So there are ways for those who have the control to try and focus on improving their business in ways that they maybe didn't have the time or energy to be able to do so when guns are blazing, the business is running at full strength.
No, I'm glad you bring that up because I always try to find some sort of a silver lining in these times. I mean, it's so easy to kind of point out all the bad things, and to that point too, even if it's a small thing, even if it's the small businesses kind of buying back in their company, it's good news to hear because we're not getting a lot of good news these days. But Nihal, I really appreciate you coming on, breaking down economic numbers, which is never easy for us. Thank you once again.